Hey guys, welcome back to the Banter Bets and BPL podcast. Just Liam here, doing something that we haven't done in a little while. We're actually going to talk about fantasy BPL. Got a little busy there with report cards and stuff for school, so we kind of put that on the back burner a little bit and kept going with the betting. But I would like to get back into giving out at least one kind of fantasy newsworthy event or note for each team after each game week, just to try and get ahead a little bit in transfers or whatnot. So yeah, that's what we're going to do today. So let's get started with Crystal Palace 0, Liverpool 7. Unreal. How good are Liverpool? I can't believe they were underdogs for the title this year. That is crazy. But anyways, my note from this game is, Palace, it's kind of tough to find. For Palace, one thing I would note is Ayew started again. They were riding with Benteke for a little bit. It is the busy Christmas period, so I could see them alternating through both. You guys know that I am an Ayew fan. I think he is the striker that plays with Zaha for most of the season. I think Benteke was a bit of a flash in the pan in terms of maybe his one season with Villa, but also with his contributions this season. I do still think that is Ayew's spot to lose. However, coming back into the team in a 7-0 loss probably isn't the greatest way to make your way back into the team. But I'm still a little bit higher on Ayew than Batshuayi and Benteke as that second striker. For Liverpool, obviously we know a lot of their guys are good. My note for this one was Minamino. Hey, he got his goal. I don't see him being a starter, obviously because they have Salah, Mane, and Firmino. However, Salah was benched, so Minamino started, and he might just be one to keep an eye on as a fifth midfielder in case of rotation over this busy Christmas period. I can see him starting at least one more, if not 2 games, because there is 3 quick game weeks coming up. So guys like that on good teams that are going to get maybe 1 or 2 starts aren't bad options at this time of year. And then you drop them later on when the games start to spread out a little more. Or maybe you can even trade him if he starts playing well. Southampton, Man City, pretty boring one here. For Southampton, the newsworthy thing was Ings getting hurt. Hopefully that's not too serious for Danny Ings, as he's their best player and best fantasy player by quite, maybe not a wide margin, but pretty easily, obviously. This news is, I think, good news I think it's best news for Theo Walcott. Because we saw last time Ings was out for a little while, Walcott kind of shifted up front and was playing kind of as a second striker with Che Adams. So I think that's best news for him. So Walcott owners will be happy about that. And if Walcott is on your wire, I think he is worthy of a pickup in 12-team, 14-team leagues, maybe even 10-team leagues, just to see if he's playing striker again. Man City, what do we have? Man City is kind of a downer. Obviously, we know Sterling, De Bruyne are good. But I just wanted to say that Laporte wasn't even in the 18, doesn't appear to be injured. If you're holding Laporte, and if your name is Cody Appel and you're holding Laporte, don't hold Laporte anymore. If you can trade him, absolutely do that. But this is Stones, this is Cancelo, Walker, and Ruben Diaz. Those are the 4 starters for Man City. They have been good defensively, so I can see why you want to be like, oh, but if Laporte plays. But at this point, you're just wasting a spot. Maybe you keep him through these 3 game weeks, hope he gets at least 1 start. But even guys like Ake have been playing over him, and Garcia have been playing over Laporte. So I would not be holding on to him tightly at all, and you kind of got to give up the dream on that one. Sorry to my friend Cody. All right. Everton, Arsenal. Oh, how bad are Arsenal? 2 on Everton. Everton back up in the top 4, looking good. My fantasy note for Everton is, there's his name right there, Gylfi Sigurdsson. Been fantasy relevant in the past. Has been pretty, let's just say bad the past season or 2. But he's been playing for them, and he's scoring, getting assists, set piece menace. I know guys like Chris Pike, you like that about your players when they're on set pieces. So in all seriousness, though, I actually drafted Sigurdsson this year, hoping he was going to play in a pretty decent attack. Looks like he's been playing lately. So as long as he's playing in that Everton attack, he's an attacking midfielder. I think he's definitely worth worth owning. He also took a penalty the other week, and as we know, there's a ton of penalties that go on in the Prem this year. So there's always going to be guys worth owning, or maybe gives them a little bit of a boost if they are penalty takers, which it looks like Sigurdsson will be. Arsenal, garbage team. They don't score very many goals, but my tip for Arsenal this week is if you want to try and get ahead of something with Aubameyang out, and they don't seem to trust Lacazette a lot, I would be taking a look at Gabriel Martinelli, who came back, looked pretty good in the League Cup against Man City this midweek. Good player, was good last year, real young, exciting young player. He's listed as a midfielder on the game. If you want to kind of get ahead of the curve a little bit and maybe add him as one of your mids, I could see him producing some fantasy value. The other one would be Eddie Nketiah. He has been playing striker with Aubameyang out. So I think those two guys who probably aren't owned in your league would be two guys to target, especially with Martinelli listed as a midfielder. He could be your third or your fifth mid there, just to give a flyer and see what happens. Definitely high upside. And I guess Nketiah also high upside as a third forward, just in case he gets a little bit of a run in the team. And if you've got, garbage in your third forward slot, which if you're in a deep league, you probably do. Newcastle Fulham, last of the Saturday games. Newcastle are such a boring fantasy team, man. It's hard to find stuff to say about them, but let's just say Callum Wilson is elite. We'll leave it at that. Man is popping off scoring goals. I was a little bit down on him after last year. He wasn't that great for Bournemouth team that got relegated. Just wasn't scoring a ton, but he is sure back and firing this season, proving why he was such a dangerous fantasy player on those Bournemouth teams that were actually good in the Prem. So we'll be keeping our eyes peeled if anyone else on Newcastle becomes fantasy relevant. For right now, it's just the Callum Wilson show. Fulham, another tough team to kind of give any news on. I would say that Mitrovic was back in the starting 11, so that's something to watch out for. Mitrovic is probably owned in your league. If someone got impatient and dropped him, I'd be picking him back up. I think he's the clear best striker on this team, which isn't saying too much, but with the forward market pretty slim in most leagues, Mitrovic is absolutely worthy of a third forward slot if he was dropped by anyone in your league. All right, Brighton, Sheffield United. For Brighton, and we're going to be talking about both these goal scorers, actually. For Brighton, it's kind of looking a little bit bad for Mopai owners because he started this game. There's kind of been trouble with Mopai and falling out with the manager. He hasn't been playing as much this season. I still think he's their best forward, and you're not obviously not dropping him or not even trying to sell him low. But I would be a little bit concerned if I'm a Mopai owner, just because Welbeck has probably looked a little bit better as of late. He's scoring the goals off the bench and an important goal in this game to tie it up. So I'm happy if I'm a Welbeck owner. If Welbeck's on the wire, I think I would be picking him up as a third forward, provided you don't have too good of a third forward right now. And Mopai, I would obviously be patient with, but I'm a little bit upset if I'm a Mopai owner. Now, Sheffield United, Bogle, what's his name? Jayden Bogle? I believe Jayden Bogle is his name. This guy's been in the lower leagues, kind of finally getting his chance, maybe. I think he is worthy of a pickup if you're absolutely desperate, just because Sheffield United has kind of been crying out for one of their forwards to actually do something. So maybe literally one goal kind of leaps him ahead of Brewster, ahead of maybe McBurney. So I would be adding him as a speculative ad just to see if he keeps starting games. And he can't be much worse than the other Sheffield strikers this season. Spurs, Leicester, disappointing one for Spurs, man. I tell you, especially if you had Alderweireld on your fantasy team, which I did. Leicester, okay, I'm going to give some love to a guy that's on my fantasy team that a lot of guys in my league have not been given love to, and it's not Jamie Vardy, it's James Justin. James Justin, he's played every single game for Leicester. People are always saying, no, once Pereira comes back and Castagne back, Justin's going out of the team, but it's not going to happen, I don't think, guys. I would be shocked if they just altogether dropped James Justin. Maybe he gets some rotation games, but he's established himself as a first choice player. He's versatile. He can play in a back five as the wing back. He can play in a back three as a center back. He can play in a back four on either side. He is a super, super versatile player, and they've had him in every single lineup this season, and it's Christmas. So I don't see that changing. I am absolutely all in on James Justin. As originally I thought he was just a bit of a filler for the start of the season until Pereira gets back. But again, we don't know when Pereira's back. Torn ACL at the tail end of last season. So that's a long recovery time. And Justin has just played every game. So I've transitioned from being a little bit more of Justin as a temporary add to he can have full season value on a Leicester team that's, albeit unpredictable, is good for fantasy in terms of clean sheets. And Justin also gets forward too. So I'm a big, big Justin fan. And we need some of the James Justin slander to stop from my brother Kieran and Marco especially. Spurs, tough to kind of take anything positive away from this game. So actually we'll take something negative away. And that is the night, Serge Aurier. Can't believe we didn't include him in the stupid 11. Wish I had the soundbite for that, actually. Didn't have that ready. But anyways, the night, can't believe we didn't include him in the stupid 11 because he is a very stupid player, and he proved such, and he proved so against Leicester, giving away that penalty at the end of the first half when he thought he was playing American football, or possibly he thought he was playing in the Ezard Invitational Ice Soccer Tournament, when he just absolutely shoulder barged, I forget who it was, from behind. Must have been Fofana from behind, and gave away a very clear and easy penalty. Absolute boneheaded move from Aurier. And the reason I bring this up for fantasy purposes is they have a better right back on their team named Matt Doherty. So I think that Doherty should get a run in the team. Always thought he's better than Aurier. Doherty hasn't been too great this season. But with Mourinho, you kind of get the feeling that he was looking for a reason to drop Aurier. And Aurier said, okay, well, I'm going to go do something stupid. Never far away from a mistake, that guy. So this was kind of coming. So I think that if Doherty's available in your league, speculative add, because we saw how good of a fantasy asset he was last year for Wolves. Not quite the same attacker at Spurs, but I think he could be worth owning if he starts to get a run in the team. I personally went ahead and traded for him this week. Manchester United 6, Leeds 2. Oh, can't remember the last time I saw United score 6 in a game. Happy, happy days for them, for sure. Although pardon me, I'm so excited I can't even talk. We have already known that Bruno Fernandes and Rashford are their best fantasy players. Bruno even better than Rashford, although Rashford's awesome. I would not be reading anything into Dan James scoring a goal. Absolutely not. McTominay, 2 goals and an assist. I don't want to be the guy running to the waiver wire to pick up McTominay, is what I'm trying to say here. He's a holding. Well, he's not even a holding. He's been playing well. He's a box-to-box mid, but this is the absolute peak for him. He doesn't even play every game, and he's not really an attacking player. I think there's much better attacking fantasy options probably available on your waiver wire. If you want to give it a go and see if he becomes the next Yaya Toure, go ahead. But I do not see him having fantasy value throughout the course of the season. Leeds, I'm going to give love to another guy on my fantasy team, and it's Stuart Dallas, because he scored in back-to-back weeks as a defender. Obviously, Leeds are trash defensively, so you don't really want too many of their defenders, especially now with Ayling, the certified bomber, playing center back. Maybe that's a reason why they're conceding so many goals, because they have a guy who's only worried about attacking, playing center back. Much better right back, Luke Ayling. But I digress. Stuart Dallas, definitely worth owning for his attacking potential, because he kind of plays right back, but then he pushes forward into center mid and attacking mid, and he's got the ball around the box all the time. So defenders like that are obviously super fun to own, and he scored in back-to-back weeks. So Stuart Dallas is a fun add if he's available on your wire, with Leeds having some actually really good fixtures coming up as well. So maybe there's some clean sheet potential on a team that has not had much of that. Villa West Brom. Let's start with Villa, because it's a lot easier to talk about. And it's the big man, Anwar El Ghazi, 2 goals. He took a penalty the other week. There's your penalty boost that we were talking about earlier with Sigurdsson. He's playing in a good attack. Anyone playing an attack with Grealish should be worth owning, because he, Villa score goals. They're fun to watch. They've got awesome attackers like Grealish, Watkins, basically those two. So I think El Ghazi, if he's on penalties, especially, is worth owning. I've never really loved the player, but sometimes you got to just swallow your pride and pick up a player that you don't like, because he still could be good in fantasy. And I think El Ghazi has definitely got that potential to be good in fantasy. So I would be looking to pick him up if he's available in leagues as well, just to see how it goes. Yeah. Oh, almost forgot to talk about West Brom. For West Brom. Jeez. Tough to kind of get excited on anything West Brom. My note will be that we saw Charlie Austin emerge from the wilderness this weekend. He didn't start. He got subbed on. I'm hearing rumors out of the West Brom camp, keeping my ear to the ground, that he's a bit more of a Big Sam player. That's not going to shock anyone to hear about that. So I think he could be in line. Carlin Grant has not looked good. No West Brom attackers really have looked good, especially strikers. I would be, maybe if you've got filthy, dirty, bottom of the barrel garbage available in your forward 3 spot, I think Charlie Austin is worth a speculative add as your third forward. He has been really, really good for fantasy in the past, a few years ago, and we're talking 4 or 5 years ago now with QPR. But if he plays, I don't think it would take much, because remember, he's not replacing, Mo Salah here up top. He would be replacing Grant, who I don't know if he's even scored yet, probably like 1 goal. So I think if you're desperate for a third forward, Charlie Austin is worth a bit of a flyer there. Burnley Wolves, Ashley Barnes is back, baby. You just love to see those Burnley goals against a team that gets so much credit for being good at playing football, like Wolves. And Burnley, especially their second goal? Yeah, where it was just lumped into the box, and Barnes and Wood are in there mucking about with Ben Mee, and it drops to Wood and he smashes it in. You just love to see that from Burnley, unless your name's Marco Calistro, because he does not love seeing that. Big Burnley hater, that guy. I don't know why. But yeah, Barnes is back. He's looking like he could be a troublemaker with his partner in crime, Chris Wood. If Barnes somehow isn't owned in your league, I would be picking him up. He's scoring again. He's looking dangerous in a way that only Ashley Barnes knows how to do. Austrian, by the way, the name Ashley Barnes. Love that too. So I've always liked him as a fun kind of player to own. Well, maybe not fun to own, but a rambunctious forward that puts himself about working hard. Burnley aren't a fun team to have players on, let's be clear about that. But if you do want to own guys, it's absolutely going to be Barnes and Wood mucking about in that box there. Wolves. So they have been playing, I know Fabio Silva came off the bench and got a penalty here. He's not looked very good. They've been playing Neto and Podence up top as strikers. Now, the easy thing to say is, oh, I own Neto or I own Podence. They're playing striker. That's awesome. I am actually going the other way on this. I think their value drops a little bit just because Wolves aren't going to score as many goals without Jimenez. I would much rather have Jimenez playing up front and Neto and Podence running around like little water bugs, causing mayhem with someone to actually finish the chances they create, rather than them playing up front and Adama's running down the right, putting in bad crosses for tiny guys to try and get at. I think their value, it doesn't go up, and maybe even goes down slightly with them playing in as strikers with no focal points, and them trying to kind of change their game to adapt a little bit. So I don't really love that, to be honest. Just an example of, if you have a midfielder and he's playing striker, it's not always a good thing, especially if he was producing in his midfield slot. You don't really want to change that up much. So hopefully, I would hope that they actually go back to starting a striker instead of those two if I'm owning those guys. And I do own Neto, and I hope they play Fabio Silva or someone else up front and put Neto and Podence back in there, kind of just off behind the striker creative roles. Chelsea, West Ham. Good for you, Chelsea. Finally beat a team in the top 10. Love giving a bit of Chelsea slander on this pod. You guys know that. West Ham, their note would be Ben Rama started. He looked like he was going to be in the lineup. I love him as a player, but just he has not produced as a fantasy player yet. I'm still holding him as a mid 5, especially if you've got the luxury to be holding him with maybe other mids who are good. But he's been a little bit disappointing so far in so much as that he just hasn't played as much, and I don't think he's contributed to a goal yet. So that's been a little bit disappointing from him, from a guy that we were all super high on. But I would be a little bit more patient with him for now. Chelsea, I know Abraham scored twice. I think Abraham is a solid forward too. Still don't know if he's part of their best 11, as Marco will tell you many times. But I actually kind of wanted to touch on Mason Mount because I think he's been one of their best attackers this year. The Chelsea fans might agree. And I think Lampard loves him. I think he's absolutely locked into a spot in that 11. And kind of in terms of attackers, there's so much question marks with that Chelsea team that you don't really know who to trust in fantasy. I think Mount is someone you can absolutely trust as a midfielder 2, midfielder 3, upside midfielder 2, I guess, probably more of a midfielder 3, but I like him. I like owning him if you've got him, just because I think he's one of the safer bets to be playing among those Chelsea attacking 4 or 5 every week. All right, guys, that is it for our fantasy portion of the Banter Bets and BPL podcast. We will be checking back later today, I believe, with some bets coming up for Boxing Day. One last note I wanted to leave actually for your fantasy guys is there is games Boxing Day and the 27th. There is a new game week 28th, 29th, and I think there's a new one like January 1st. I don't know. I guess I can look right here. 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, and then 1, 2, 3, 4. So games are going to be coming thick and fast, back to back to back. Shout out Peyton, who just came into the screen. But yeah, my point that I was going to get before getting sidetracked there is to not panic if you guys aren't playing, because these guys literally have 3 games in a week, guys, back to back to back. There is going to be a lot of squad rotation, a lot of different players playing. So the fantasy games are a little bit unpredictable. Don't get discouraged if your guys aren't starting, and don't do anything stupid like dropping a guy when he hasn't played one game, just because there's going to be a ton of rotation. That probably goes without saying, but yeah, just a good disclaimer to give in any case. All right, guys, stay active on those waiver wires. Good to be back talking about fantasy. Hopefully you guys can help improve your teams like I need to be doing, because I've lost 4 in a row in fantasy. I'm an absolute shambles right now. Thankfully, I've got my my guy that I always kick the crap out of coming up in Marco. So Marco, if you're listening, I'm coming for you this week. I'm guaranteeing a win against you in fantasy. And Eddie Nketiah is going to score on Chelsea and on your fantasy team. And I would absolutely love that. All right. Thanks for listening to Banter Bets and BPL, guys. We are done here. Go make some pickups and enjoy some footy on every single day, pretty much, of the Christmas holidays from Boxing Day on. So that's awesome. Stay safe out there and happy holidays.